So you have particular goals in life. Everyone does. Goals are good. We want to achieve them. We want to go after them. We want to experience the sweet success and glory of whatever it is we want, be it relationship, money, health, peace of mind. And as you know as well, as soon as you set out to go after a goal, there are blockages that come in the way. There are issues, there are things within us, be it genetic, be it cultural, be it from family, be it from our own ignorance, things we need to learn, things we don't understand yet. In short, there are blockages. So, how do we get to what we want if there's things in the way? And what can financial astrology, esoterica, understanding of nature, and understanding of self provide in terms of that understanding to clear these blockages out of the way so that we can get what it is that we want? The chart will talk not only about what we want, but the nature of these blockages. And we have our friend, licensed professional nurse, my researcher, and professional astrologer, Christina, here to break down the asteroid of karma, Saturn, as well as some other aspects that could be in your way towards what you want, with example charts including Kennedy, Rogan, and more. Christina, welcome to the channel. Please
Oh, thank you
share with
so
us
much,
what you have to
Sana.
share.
Thank you to have me back again over here. And that is one of my favorite subjects. And you guys, I have to tell you, we already recorded this subject a month before, but I wasn't satisfied. And I'm kind of perfectionist over here. And I told Sama, listen, I was not really objective over here. I want to be more objective. So let's re-record it. So thank you so much for the opportunity to re-record it as well. Yes, so today I'm here actually to talk about karma, Lord of Karma, Saturn, and we're going to include, as Sama said, the asteroid karma as well, South Node and North Node and their significance, and the Trinity of the pillar in our life and duality as well. I'm going to talk about everything. As you know, I wrote a book which is Astrology Uncensored, Zodiac with Wit and Wisdom, and it's going to be ready to be published in a month. But as a gift to you from me, I'm going to actually give you the everything about karma part in a blog so you can read. Because during this video, we're not going to be able to talk about every single aspect over here or every kind of play out possibly that you could have in life. If you are actually scheduler reading with us, we are capable to determine possibly the death in the previous life. And I'm going to give you 7 examples over here. So yes, and I always have a pacifier in my hand, so I always play with something. Sorry about that, but that is just me. All right, so I'm going to start, and I built up this whole video by actually determine and actually the definition of karma. What is karma actually in our life? And karma is a concept, and it's originating from Indian religions. It is from Hinduism or Buddhism, and it's based on afterlife and rebirth. And
Why do
this
you
is
think people have such confused definitions of the word karma?
because of lately, people only think karma is bad. Karma is only a punishment.
Hmm.
And they don't understand that is not, and the reward punishment kind of concept. It is actually helping us to have some kind of moral code and live with integrity and life after life trying to achieve enlightenment. Well, I do have to tell you, not a lot of people achieve enlightenment yet. But if we see Buddha or Jesus Christ, or probably there was other religions also, the messengers already did and achieved the Masara, which is the enlightenment over there. Actually moksha, but yes, so that is the because of people actually associates karma with only punishment. If they do some bad things, it's going to come back on them, and And there is a lot of guilt in this as well. So I realize people are many times really, really either embarrassed to do something bad and, they have their secret, or they guilty for some reason and carry that guilt. They are actually thinking like, oh my God, I have done that. I cannot talk about this, but, karma is coming back and going to grab me by the ass, whatever. But
Yeah.
it's not working like this. Absolutely.
So that's
But definitely,
interesting because one of the things you'll do later is go over the 12 signs, and that could be a reflection question for someone watching, for you watching, or even myself, in the sense of, is where, let's say, Saturn or the asteroid karma or some of the other points that you're mentioned related to any guilt or shame I might have related to this house or this sign, and you'll dive into those things later. But I think that's pretty interesting that you bring that up. Please continue.
it is interesting, but you said the shame. Actually, I'm going to give you one example later on when I bring up my chart, because actually the karmic wound is Chiron. So we're going to talk about that as well. But karmic debts, yes, we're gonna talk about that, the possible way every single sign in or houses in. How could you have died, passed away, for example, or what is your karmic debts, and how you can pay off with charity your karmic debts, because you can also actually weaken your karma. So this is really, really important to understand. So
Yes.
yes, the basic understanding of karma is, many times you heard that you reap what you sow, action, reaction. So that's definitely based on but it's not only some kind of physical action. It is also considers moral and ethical implication as well. So actually it is more moral and ethical implication and not the physical punishment over here. And as I said, it has to be built on rebirth, right? And that is samsara, the rebirth. And during rebirth, we are capable actually to release our karma or actually grow from it, have a spiritual understanding, get enlightened during the rebirth. So definitely, and you have to understand karma could have a short-term or long-term effect. And what I realized and what I write about my book, because I also write a script, a movie script, which is pretend, and actually that is about karma, previous life, afterlife, and how your action actually indicated, premature death, or like rape or whatever, or also awards from life as well. So that is the base of my movie script, but. It could have, so I have to talk about the long term effect and the short term. If you do something small in this lifetime, for example, you store something, most likely you get back the consequences and you pay for the consequences in this recent current life. But if you murdered someone, or if you were a dictator, so the long-term effect is when you are actually killing someone, or you are a dictator and actually you command to kill thousands of people, then you're going to pay for your karmic debts over and over and over and over again. For example, one of my guru, I don't like that word. No, no, no. One of the person I love to learn from, yeah, uh, said, if you actually were a bomber in the World War I or II, and you killed a man, and you made a child crippled, and the woman survived, you have to rebirth one who is a woman who gonna have a crippled child, and also you will be reborn like a man, but a premature death, and you're going to get back exactly what you given in your previous life. And this is a very, very hard subject to talk about, because a lot of us has hardship over here. Actually, all of us have hardship over here, and sometimes we experience on earth heaven, and sometimes we experience hell. And when we experience hell, we are questioning, why did I get it? I have done so much good right now and I'm trying to pay it off, but why am I being punished? And it's very hard to understand. For example, death of a child, right? or getting cancer, it's very hard to actually comprehend. Why do I have to get this to pay for something? Later on in life, we will be actually ashamed by our illnesses. And actually, that is in my movie script, because we will understand what kind of action created that kind of illnesses. So, that is also the concept of karma over here. All right. But karma actually is responsibility and self-improvement, and it encourages us to have good choice and make mindful and good choices and strive for integrity and moral in our life. So that is very, very important. And as I said before, justice and moral order, maintaining some kind of balance in the universe, if you have done that, all right, it's going to correspond with an action, right? And it's that's exactly the similar kind of action what you're going to get back. And sometimes I like to actually get the example from the Godfather, because so Michael was forced to become a mafia leader, but however, he did for the family karma, right? However, he lost his daughter by the end. So no matter what, he had a lot of money, very, very powerful person, whatever, but by the end, he paid so much because he lost the one who he most loves. So this is like a terrible example, but I just wanted to actually bring in an example over here. So yes, as I said, it's not only punishment and reward, but it promotes spiritual growth and ethical living for us. So this is the base of karma over here. But you have to understand, and I'm going to bring in Trinity over here because of in Feng Shui, I'm a Feng Shui master, Feng Shui practitioner, not master, Feng Shui practitioner. And in Feng Shui, we have heaven, earth, and humankind. That is the three influences, the three levels of our life. And heaven is actually the Tian Chai. This is the way, the Qi, the energy flowing in our life in Feng Shui. And the Qi is affecting our life. Heaven is something what we cannot change. That is destiny, fate. It is actually determined for us. This is where you were born. For example, that is your astrology chart with all the natal aspect. You are not capable to change the natal aspects. You can actually a little bit weaken the hard aspect or pay off karmic debts, obviously, because I'm going to give you remedies over here. And during progression, that's what you do because of you evolve, you try to grow, hopefully, some of us. But but usually that is determined, and you are not capable to actually do anything with your birth chart. All right. But then we have the earth lack, and that is the second pillar of the Trinity over here, which is the Tichai, and that is your environment factors, everything around you, everything, your house, the buildings you are living in, the way you are actually interacting with your neighbors, with your friends, with your family. And then we have the human lag, the Renchai, and that is actually your personal actions, decisions, the food what you eat, the choices what you are make. And also the friends around you, your behavior, your attitude. And in Hungary, we have a saying, you recognize a bird from its feather. I don't know, do we have that in English, American? I was not born here, so I have a lot of lack of information in American.
Sure. What is the phrase? Say it.
So the phrase is like you recognize a bird from its feather, a flock of bird from its feather, and the
Is it
man.
they fly together or what is it?
No, the feather.
Okay.
No, the feather, when it's, you find a feather, what kind of birds or flock of birds flew through. And the man from its friends who you surround yourself with. So that is very important. I keep telling my boys, whoever is your friends, it's going to determine your whole entire being. Please don't, choose wisely. Choose someone who you can look up onto. Choose someone who is a support system, who is good to talk to, who make you to brainstorm, and who has good choices, attitudes in life. That is very, very important. So that is in Feng Shui, that is actually the human luck over here, which you are capable to change all the times, your behavior, your thinking. Mind over matter. Change your brain, change your life. Like you are capable to do that. Try to do meditation. You are capable to change your life through that. You're capable to go and move away if you don't like your neighborhood. Obviously, if you have financial, you know, access to change, and move, but most likely you can do that. All right. And then in Hinduism, there is a pillar also over here and Trinity here as well. And we're talking about in Hinduism karma, dharma, and moksha. And actually, karma is Saturn and South Node and the asteroid karma. Dharma is North Node. That is your purpose. That is the avenue, what you have to achieve in life. And then you have moksha, which is the enlightenment, rebirth cycles. Samsara is done. You don't have to reborn again unless you are willing to, because you want to have a change on Earth or Moon or other planets or other universe, doesn't matter. But then you are capable to reborn again. But that's also based on Trinity as well. So, for example, the karma is the law of cause and effect. We were talking about that. Dharma is your duty. That is actually a moral order. That is an ethical path what you need to achieve in this lifetime. That is the North Node where you haven't been yet. That path haven't been walked on. So this is your very, very individual path, what you have to work on. Yes, so that is very, very important. And moksha, as I said, it is actually free your soul. You being freed. You don't have to reborn again and do this again. I mentioned that to my children many times, like, I don't want to reborn in this earth again. And they were like, oh, mom, you are not there yet. Come on, you definitely not enlightened. You are cursing all the time. And they are right. That's definitely, I'm not there yet. Cosmo have some words to say. I'm sorry. He is always getting involved in my videos. So, this is the moksha over here when you and me and anyone who listens, we are realizing our purpose, the supreme reality. Just like Yuda said, we are not this crude matter, but spiritual being, and we have to understand. And, detachment from material desires, it is so damn hard. Come on. In this world, when everything is, and, as you are financial astrologer, and I'm doing researches in financial astrology and stock market, come on, it is very hard to get detached from material desires. It is just like almost, because it's ego ruled, right? And the ego is actually something to do with, like, this is like surviving. Ego helps you to survive. So we need our ego. And obviously we need material comfort and luxury as well, because otherwise it's, like life could be very difficult. Yes. And I don't know if I mentioned that to you, but when I did meditation before, my grandfather came through, and he was not an educated man. He was an amazing storyteller, a Scorpio Sun, Sagittarius Moon. But somehow when he came through, he passed away and came through, and he told me, when you are connected with the divine energy, when you reborn, you decide what is your mission, North Node. You decide who is your parents and what kind of difficulty levels you want to take in life. Do you want to get rid? That's how you have to pay. Unfortunately, this is very, like, sometimes when I'm talking about that, I surprise myself. Oh my God, did I really just say that? Who wants to get raped or shot or killed? Nobody. But up there, it was totally different when you choose your missions. You know what you had to actually come through to pay off the debts, what you did previously. but you have to pay for. And my grandpa said, you are coming with a little bit of spiral energy. If you are born just to have like a week of life, or you will die 2 years old, you are coming from the universal energy, from the Akashic record, just with a very small energy. You only take as much as you need to fulfill your purpose over here. Okay, so that's what it is. And I also have to say that we are going through evolution, and we're never going to back to the frequency of Stone Age, even if we are having a lot of war around us and evilness and greed. Somehow the evolution, the spiral is going up, guys. All right. So we are never going to go back. So I'm happy to live right now and remember, hopefully I'm gonna remember this life, but because of it's getting better and better through every single reincarnation. All right. So, yes, and I was talking about the material desire and detachment, and that the actually the moksha over there. And a little bit of Trinity over here, I wanted to mention that and just say a few examples. Because a lot of things is based in our life on Trinity, Christianity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and then spirit, body, mind. And in Hinduism, we have the Brahma, the Vishnu, and the Shiva, that is the creator, the preserver, and the destroyer, right? We need destroyers to have builders. Otherwise, the builders wouldn't actually be capable to rebuild something. So you always need destroyers over there. And then actually in Egypt, we had Osiris, Isis, and Horus. So the father, mother, and the son. So there is where the Trinity coming into our discussion right now. And Dante, for example, if you were reading anything about Dante, it was amazing of the Divine Comedy. And he said, we had the Inferno, the Purgatorio, and the Paradiso, the paradise, and the Purgatory, where you have to actually go there. Where are you going to go? Heaven or hell? Choose your way. What did you do in your Inferno? And that is also karma. Did you have good deeds, good actions, purgatory? And then, okay, you go here or there. So everything is also based on Trinity as well. And I just wanted to mention that. And then right now we can talk about Saturn over here, the Lord of Karma. And the Lord of Karma is structure and discipline. A lot of you know that. And, actually Saturn is giving us life lessons in our life because of it fosters growth and maturity through challenges. It's give you challenges. Saturn rules the 10th house and the 11th house, right? It's rulership over there. Firstly, 10th house, honor and recognition, discipline, structure. And secondly, the 11th house with Uranus, Chorus over there. But Saturn also give you and show you where is your karmic debt in your chart, where is your obstacles, which could feel like a punishment for us many, many times. And let's face it, it is kind of punishment many times. When you have Saturn return, that is the phase of maturity, you got hit by a hammer sometimes, like, oh my God, what just happened? Like if you remember, because your Saturn return was recent, not a long time ago, like it could bring in challenge and difficulties. But Saturn is also Chronos, it's aging, it's maturing, right? And as I said, Saturn return, we have every single 29 and a half years. So that's the orbit around the sun when Saturn goes. Saturn is a very slow social planet. So it goes slowly. That's the orbit around the sun. So we have three phase of Saturn return. We have the first phrase, which is happening between 28 and between 30 years old, right? And then over there, we going to get matured. We get some kind of challenges, which is maturity. A lot of people is actually having their babies first or getting married over there. Okay, like you got greater responsibility. The second one is happening between 57 and 60, actually, when you reevaluate your life, making adjustment, or did I accomplish what I wanted or not? And then You have the third one, if you are lucky enough to live that long, 86 and 88, then you're tying up loose ends. So, like, all right, that is the wisdom coming in, forgiveness coming in over here. So yes, that is definitely, and Saturn also as spiritual growth as well, because it's encouraging you to seek for deeper meaning of life and the deeper meaning of your existence. So that is very important. And Saturn is, if it's going to give you restriction, it's only give you restriction because it's want to liberate you. So, for example, if you're disciplined and if you are not leaping any steps with Saturn, then you are going to achieve greater freedom, and the sweetness of the success going to be very, very amazing. You will feel like very satisfied with Saturn, actually, if you achieve through Saturn. So that's really, yeah. And I don't know if, we should talk about mythology a little bit over here.
Saturn or what mythology? Share with
Just mention Saturn, like, Saturn in Greek mythology is
Sure,
Chronos.
sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, and he was the son of Uranus and Gaia. And actually, I don't know how I feel about Saturn, because of he overthrown Uranus, right, the father of him, because he was threatened by him. But then he ate his children because he was scared to be overthrown by them, except Jupiter. And then Jupiter finally, like overthrown, killed Saturn, and actually had the sisters and brothers to escape. But I was like, oh, all right. So he was very, very naughty over here because killed the father and ate his children. What is going on here? So that is the mythology behind Saturn, if you want to know about that. Yes. And what else should we talk about here? Yes, so it's give you definitely opportunity to not just to grow, but to actually make it right. Righting wrongs, make it right, and be responsible for your actions, and try to do amends and seek for forgiveness. So that's Saturn over here, and that's how it's manifest in our life. And okay, let's talk about Saturn in houses right now. So, for example, Saturn in the first house, you have to understand, because I'm going to go on like Saturn in the houses, then the possible way you died, and then what is the remedy. And we're going to talk about the axis energy, and also, the essential dignity over here as well. And we're going to bring in the notes, karma, and I'm just going to provide you with a few examples over here. And some examples going to be very heavy, but we're going to talk about that and brainstorm. So in the first house, actually, you're carrying over a past life identity crisis, for example, something with heavy responsibility. First house Saturn could be actually children who are bullied many times, or that's the children over here. You will have to resolve some kind of issues with self-esteem and personal identity. So in Saturn, in the second house, it could be some kind of severe poverty involved in your life, some kind of material struggles, right? And right now, you will have to focus on financial security in this lifetime. You have to make sure, actually, your greed and material manipulation not going to set you back in this lifetime, but you have to have, for example, a saving account, or actually like try to have a saving account if we are talking about finances over here. In third house, Saturn, actually, you had some kind of challenges with communication, anything to being silenced or, muted. And, I have to tell you something over here. When I checked the chart of Catherine, Princess Catherine, and I'm gonna actually bring her up also. She did, and she was muted, and we're going to talk about that. So remember what I said over here, Saturn in the third house, because that's your word had impact, but that's why you get punished if it has a bad aspect. Actually, if it's a good aspect, no, you are an amazing writer. But if it's a bad aspect, then you were punished because maybe you were a whistleblower and they killed you. In the fourth house, it could relate to some kind of debts related to family issues, and you will have to actually pay off family karma as well. And don't forget to associate the houses with the sign as well, because actually fourth house also represented by Cancer, so Cancer has the same implication with Saturn in here. So lessons about emotional security, family responsibilities, and domestic stability is a must in this lifetime. You will need to heal family wounds over here. In the fifth house, you could have some kind of issue to getting pregnant or have children. And, it could be something related to denying someone's right to express themselves, a child rights to express themselves, something to do with creativity. Or, it could be something with overindulgence. Fifth house is joy and pleasure. And maybe you were someone who gambled a lot and you could actually gamble away family fortune. In the sixth house is health and, also service for other and work, and that is also your rental property and pets as well. So you might neglected your health and you abused your body somehow. Or actually, you could have mistreated your employees or coworkers, and that's why you will need to pay karmic debts over. Or you abused animals. You were an animal abuser if it is badly aspected. If it's well aspected, you were the opposite of that, but we're going to talk about that again. In the seventh house, Saturn, the karmic issues were something to do with legal disputes, or it could have been something to unfair businesses, unfair partnership. You might did adultery over here, or you betrayed your loved one, just like Jupiter, Juno, for example, an example over here. Very poor relationship choices over here, so abusing partnership as well. Saturn in the eighth house related anything to do with taboos, inheritance, death, sexuality, anything to do with mishandled abuse of other people, and it could be sexual abuse as well. So you will have to pay maybe consequences for your manipulative behaviors. I'm sorry. But you could be also mewed by animals over here or be a drop cutter or mafia leader as well. But also we're going to go and talk more about that. In the ninth house, if Saturn is, like in the past life restriction was anything to do with your freedom and beliefs, so somebody didn't let you to be educated or study, or somebody didn't let you to practice your religion, something to do with dogmatism over here, religious dogmatism, and consequences of that you will have to pay in this lifetime. Anything to misuse your religious or legal power, because ninth house also your legal power, because it's ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter is law and justice. Or you wrote a book or journalism and it was a gossip, and you actually mislead people with your information. Saturn in the 10th house, it could be anything to achieve actually success or political power to use other people. So, like you use them or you humiliate others. That's how you went against your enemy. What's just happening right now in politics? Disgusting. That's the way, Saturn in the 10th house. So misusing your authority actually to achieve success and abuse your power. That's in 10th house. In 11th house, because 11th house to do anything to do with your community, you might have actually oppressed your community's right. So, for example, you misused your friends, you use them to reach something, and you betrayed your friends, and that's the karmic that's over here, but you're going to pay. So that's what it means, Saturn or South Node or asteroid karma mean over here? And in the 12th house, anything to do involving secrets, self-sabotaging behavior, anything to do like you were hidden enemies, you did a lot of revenge, you isolated yourself, prison, mental hospitals, and you going to carry a lot of subconscious field and a lot of guilt over in this lifetime. So that is Saturn in the houses. And if you want to talk about the way you might have passed, then we can also talk about that. And I can mention one about if it's well aspected Saturn, you might have passed this way. And I have to tell you guys, it is not everything, because the interpretation, I have to see your chart. Is it square with Pluto? What other planets is actually, affects that kind of Saturnian energy? I only going to talk about right now the Saturnian placement and the way you might have actually passed away over here. So if you had Saturn in the first house, then you could be a tribal chief, someone who was wise and very, very fair and was respected, and you were actually passed away during your sleep and, surrounded by people who loved you. But if it is negatively aspected, you might be a manipulative ruler and you might have been overthrown, just like Saturn by Jupiter, and because you had harsh rules. In the second house, actually, if it's very positively aspected, and actually one of my son has that, you could have been a landowner, very, very wealthy, who had a vast of lands and, resources, prosperity, and you passed away naturally in old age and people respected you. But if it's negatively aspected, you could be actually a greedy miser, someone who hoarded wealth and, never shared his or her wealth, and you died alone. And maybe you died with your gold on, but nobody was there to mourn you or, in your last minutes. In the third house, if it is well aspected, you could have been a famous writer, you've been recognized and obviously then peacefully passing away, maybe even working on your last major work. But if it is badly aspected, you might have been actually someone who was spreading false information for personal gain, and you have been actually executed in public. It could be that as well. In the fourth house, it could be like, if it's well aspected, you were a matriarch, a patriarch somewhere there, and you were based on your family really, really loved you, always went over there for advice, and they brought you home even if you were sick, and they let you to pass away in your home. But if it is badly aspected, you might have been in war or, in refugee camp, died, or homeless, for example, because of you had conflict with your family and you became lonely because you couldn't solve the problem with your family. In the fifth house, anything to do with your creativity. So if it's if it's positively aspected, you could be a great painter, a writer, a creator who lived in joy and who had a lot of pleasure, and then you maybe wrote your script in the music studio and like your lyrics, you worked on it and you passed away over there peacefully, also working on or you were actually singing your last song on stage and you passed away after that, but with recognition. But if it is like negatively aspected, there is a lot of reckless behavior in the fifth house, because fifth house also, like investment and risk taking. So you might actually took a lot of risk for joy and pleasure, and you could have a tragic accident, or you died because somebody killed you because you gambled and you owned money and they killed you. So that could be very possible over here. In sixth house, you could have been a healer over here, a nurse, for example, who cared for others, and a tender nurse. And like you were recognized for your services. But if it is badly aspected, you could be someone who is overworked and underpaid and underappreciated, and you just collapse from exhaustion because that is the house of health. So we have to involve the health over here and work as well. So in the seventh house, if it's harmonious, aspected, then you had an amazing marriage or business partnership, and you might, that story of, oh, I forget that movie when they died right after each others, and they were all. Okay, I'm gonna remember maybe later on. But it could be a story of yours, could have been a story of yours when you died with your husband or wife hand in hand with each others, and you had an amazing marriage. But if it's badly aspected, you might have some kind of unresolved conflict with a business partner or marriage partner, and you might have been actually wounded fatally, or like because of you started to fight with your partner, and you get killed by your partner. In eighth house is very tricky over here, because eighth house could be a lot of thing. You could have been mauled by an animal, and or sex traffic, or it could be very nasty death in previous life. But you could have been also a mystic, for example, who solved, or detective who solved a lot of mystery and helped others, to get justice, and then you were celebrated. Or, for example, if you were a mystic, you could die during meditation just to leave your body. But eighth house could be very, very dark and dangerous, and assassinations and violent ending as well. Ninth house, anything to do actually with travel the world, for example, and beliefs. So it could be like, well aspected, you traveled the world, you were blogging, writing, not blogging because obviously it's previous life, so it depends, like how quickly you came to this world. But, it could be something like you did discoveries and anthropology, and you really enjoyed the life through traveling and through your new philosophies and meeting other people, or, like learning other languages. And you could have died actually in a foreign land. But if it is badly aspected, you could have died actually because of public execution, maybe because of you had some kind of dogmatic, rigid beliefs. But a lot of people who got actually burnt like witches, those people also under these circumstances. So Saturn over here could be the witches who have been burnt, unfortunately. Uh, and in 10th house, anything to do with politics, anything to do with honor and recognition. So you might have been a successful politician, not everyone, of course, and I have to see your chart. You were respected for your service, and you've been remembered by others, and they carry on your legacy, for example. But if it is better aspected in the 10th house, that could be a scandal, or it could be some kind of public disgrace, and it could lead to your death, maybe through a heart attack because of the scandal. But it's created a heart attack in your life. 11th house, if it's positive, you were a social reformer who wanted to have changes, who actually, initiated changes and had the sense of community, brought communities and people together. So definitely you were very innovative because the Uranian energy over here. And it's also legacy and justice. You were seeking for justice and legacy here. But if it's badly aspected, like definitely you don't get honor and recognition over here, because you could be very isolated from friends. You had a lonely death because nobody wanted to be around you. No community wanted to have you anymore because of, there could have been a political betrayer or some kind of friendship betrayer as well. But could lead to your death over there. And in 12th house, actually, you could be a spiritual hermit. Anyone who is a monk, anyone who is, in a Buddhist temple, a priest, Mother Teresa is belong from here as well. So you could actually die if it is well aspected, caring for the poor. Mother Teresa died peacefully, helped others. Uh, and if it is badly aspected, it could be betrayed by someone else, and it could be actually a hidden enemy. But you could have been poisoned or thrown into mental hospitals, or imprisoned, and it could be some kind of very, very major mental struggle what you will actually have to endure in this life, or you overdosed. Addiction could actually be 12th house as well. So, all right. So that is actually the way you could have died over here.
Very good. Awesome. Awesome.
And we also will have to weaken our karma. So if we have a reading with people, they have to understand you're capable to weaken the karma, and the only way to weaken your karmic debts is to pay forward. And if you have Saturn in the first house, you pay forward for disabled children or people who are in wheelchair or veterans. In the second house, you can teach financial literacy for underprivileged communities, or you can actually give to food banks and for clothing drives as well. In third house, you can actually volunteer to help children to learn how to read or write. And in fourth house, you can help actually on the homeless shelters, or you can provide some kind of housing for homeless or refugees, or you can do some kind of parenting workshop, because fourth house also parenting as well. In fifth house, anything to do with joy, like you can actually help coach children for free who doesn't have, do a non-profit for children and teach them how to surf or do any kind of sport or artwork as well. Give money in art therapies or help children with art therapies. In sixth house, you can actually become if you are a gym trainer or if you are a yoga trainer, instructor, you can help giving class on the beach free once a week, and you can pay off your karma like that. Or you can actually create for your employees a Zen meditation room and have them to relax and sleep 30 minutes after lunch. In seventh house, in relationship, you can become a mediator between people, or you can actually help people provide legal services. A lot of people who, like don't know how to get visas or don't know how to get citizenship or whatever, and you are there and you helping them. So that's how you can actually pay that off. And also in eighth house, you can be a grief counselor as well, or helping in funeral homes. Ooh, that's creepy, but yeah, you can do that. You can also give financial advice, paying of other people debts, paying of children's lunch. I do that. So for example, I have Saturn in the eighth house, and I do a lot of like, okay, these children, owes money and the parents are not wealthy, and I pay off their lunch money. And you can also actually help in organization where violence, abuse are occurred, rape, and sex violence, sex trafficked children over here. And in ninth house, actually, you can teach language to others. So maybe it's a foreigner in your country but doesn't speak the language, and you have them to learn the language. And yes, and also spiritual counseling as well, because ninth house is very spiritual, and your spiritual beliefs, or like helping to invite people in your podcast, what you do with me right now. So that is actually really good for Saturn in the ninth house. In the 10th house, you can actually professionally mentor people and young professionals so can achieve something. You can also actually help your government community. So for example, I know the elections, and you can help the candidate you are going to vote for. That's really, actually, it's really good to pay off karma if you guys want to do that. And in 11th house, you have to definitely do and support some kind of social cause, but you can actually create non-profit, any kind of non-profit over here. 11th house is non-profit, and what is helping actually the community network to get in touch with each other. So you are the one who is helping people to know and to meet each others. And the 12th house, it's very easy. You can do anything over here: prison, homeless shelter. You can work in hospice, providing comfort and support for the final stage of life. That is very important. Mental health awareness, addiction center. So 12th house, there is a lot of opportunity to actually pay off your karmic debts with charity and humanitarian acts. So yes.
That was really, really deep and very thorough in terms of the different aspects. And a reminder, too, this can include a lot of what Christina has shared, can include the South Node placement in your chart as well. So, what house is your South Node placed in? Go back throughout the video and listen to what she said about the remedies and the blockages as well. And there's also the asteroid of karma itself that will meet a lot of what Christina has broken down. Can you remind us what the number of that asteroid is for people?
Yes, yes.
Astro.com?
I wanted to, yes. So that is 3811, 3811 is the karma asteroid. And you can go to astro.com if you don't have your Sirius or your solar fire. I do have them, but actually I have to tell you, I prefer astro.com and AstroSeek for some reason. It's so easy to use, guys, and it's free. And there is a lot of information, because if you go there and click on it, you can read. It's tremendous amount of information on those websites. Like really, you can learn astrology through those websites.
That's awesome. So astro.com and astroseek.com. And the 3 points we're looking at again is Saturn, the South Node, and the asteroid of karma. And while you might want to look at some of these in your own chart or to book Christina for a session to dive into this, you'll see in a minute as she goes through a variety of charts here, breaking down how a lot of the placements she just broke down affect certain people. So why don't we dive into that and pull up some charts? Let's have a little fun.
Actually, yes, I can do that, but I wanted to talk about the remedies first a little bit.
Sure, please. Yes, go ahead.
Just to,
Before we do
to
that.
mention that, because people have to understand, everybody is scared of Saturn. I realize that people are so scared of Saturn. This is like unbelievable. And you also have to understand, as above, so below. So everything has positive and negative aspect. Try to use mind over matter, and you can actually weaken that. So I wanted to talk about a little bit over here, the duality and the axis energy and everything about that. So I mentioned a few things, and I'm gonna be really, really quick, and then I'm going to pull up the charts for you guys and the cases here. But as I said before, we are and our life are built on duality. So you have to understand, as above, so below. No lights without dark, no hate without love. All right. So that is the base of our life over here. The main things here, we need to find a silver lining. And the silver lining, actually, the way we are finding it with gratitude, right? We prayer, gratitude. So that's very, very important, because of the duality is based on the yin and yang, and every disaster has some kind of hope and love in it. And I'm going to tell you an example over here. When I experienced my first hurricane in Key West, and it was devastating. We got flooded, and everybody, 85% of the island was like totally underwater. But I tell you something, right before the hurricane, because we couldn't, it get there so fast, we couldn't escape. And right before the hurricane, people came together. Guys, I have never in my entire life, I mean, I did, because my family is very loving, the 3 boys and my dog, but that love, that sense of community, that compassion, which is coming from strangers, I never have felt that. And then the flood happened, and we were all devastated. And the help, we all helped each others. It was not even a question. So what I wanted to tell over here, in the disaster, the home are lost, lives are disrupted, and the future also seems bleak, but this is the black part of the yin and yang symbol. But there is the white that is the compassion, strangers helping, and it was amazing over there. So there is the silver lining with gratitude, and stay connected, talk to people, talk to your loved one, talk to people who are your tribes. And especially right now with this Uranus Mars, stay connected, be connected with your like-minded people, because it's going to be very, very difficult. And in duality, also, I'm not necessarily going to mention all the planets, but I just wanted to talk about the seven virtue, because, it's also the heavenly virtue and the deadly sin. For example, Sun is representing pride and humility, because pride is the ego. And the humility, when you are compassionate and you are giving yourself and encouraging others. Moon could be actually envy, but also kindness is there. And that is also promoting empathy, kindness. But envy is there because Moon can be unstable if it's badly affected. And then is jealousy and envy side. So I'm not going to go all through, but you can read that, because as I said, I'm giving you a gift from my book, which is like 100 pages. You can read about everything about karma. And some are going to actually put the link below, and also my other book as well, and you can read about that. So I don't want to waste time on that, because you can read about this here. But we can talk a little bit about the axis remedies, and we can also talk about the what is that? Oh my God, the remedies for a little bit. So what you have to understand, when you have Saturn, actually there is an example in your 8th house, you will need to use the axis energy of the second house, because Saturn in the 8th house representing something like, and it's financial. So I brought it up because of financial astrology. You were living of trust, or, other people's money, you cheated, white collar criminal could have been, or, you just had it easy, like with inheritance or something like that, or welfare maybe. And in this lifetime, you have to actually use Saturn and make your own wealth. And actually, Joe Rogan had that, and I'm gonna bring up Joe Rogan just like right now I mention it, and I have that also in my chart, but that is representing that. So the axis energy. And the essential dignity, you also need to know. Saturn actually in rulership, I told you already, but it is actually exalted in Libra, right? And also it's in force in Aries, and detriment in Leo and Cancer. So you have to know the energy, because if you know the energy, you're capable to create remedies. Anything with remedies, it is herbs, it is gemstones or musical notes, then you are capable to create that. So, you have to know the essential dignities of the planet, and also the aspect over here. And that's where I also going to bring in for a few sentences Rahu and Ketu over here, the North Node and the South Node, which is like, as I said, South Node exactly the same as Saturn is. We were talking about an asteroid karma, but North Node is the Dharma. It is your life purpose in this lifetime. And what you have to know over here about this, like for example, the nodes, for example, let's see the North Node. North Node and South Node actually is exalted in Sagittarius and Gemini. Yes. And the nodes are, for example, South Node is you are moving away from South Node. That's the gift that you brought from your past life. But the North Node is your mission over here. And you can have different kind of mission, because right now the life expectancy is getting longer and longer. So you can do 30 years, be a doctor, 30 years, a musician or whatever, but you can create more legacies in this lifetime if you are, like taking, and if you are using Saturn energy well. So that could be really there. And, that is your hidden gifts over there. Also, the gift what you are bringing from last life, that is the South Node. All right. And then if we are talking about the axis and the energies, we have to talk, if Saturn, for example, is in detriment, you're going to, because it's weakened energy, then you're going to actually make Saturn stronger. How do you make Saturn stronger? With Saturnian gemstones or Saturnian herbs. So comfrey, anything to do with sage, anything to do with thyme. Saturnian gemstones could be anything to do with black onyx or hematite or any kind of black stones. And I'm also not going to go through all of that over here, but I just wanted to mention a few in these remedies as well. But if it is very strong Saturn in your chart, for example, it's in Libra, so it is exalted and has very bad aspect, you want to actually make it weaker. So how do you make it weaker? For example, if it's in the 11th house, Saturn in Libra, then you also use Jupiter, because Jupiter has planetary joy in 11th house. So, you have to bring in a lot of things over here. And then you use Moon, you use Venus, you use Jupiter, you can use the herbs and tones. For example, anything to do with Moon, that is the pearl and moonstones, and anything to do with watermelon, melons and apples, aloe vera, those are the herbs and stones and fruits, what you can actually eat, and use the day. If you have a weak Saturn, you use Saturday to make it better. If you have a very strong Saturnian energy and badly affected, use either Venusian day or use also Jupiterian, so Thursday or Friday, Venus, or you can use also Monday for the moon, right? So play with it because there is remedies in it. But as I said, I wrote you guys a lot, and I'm not going to actually talk about everything, but there is also musical notes, if you guys believe it or not. And I have to tell you something. I have a guy. I always working with guys for some reason. I don't understand why. Maybe because I have two boys. But Nick is the teacher of my children, and he's teaching piano and guitar for the boys and drumming. And he's the one who is working with me, and he does actually compose the musical healing for the bad aspect in your chart. So I analyze the chart and I call Nick and I say, okay, we're going to work with this megahertz, with this hertz, 146, for example, for Venus. And these notes, but he knows better than me because I played piano, but he knows better. I just giving him what planet. He's a Pisces dude, so he really into also astrology and plants and everything. So, and he creates the music for me, but you can actually listen at night and repeat it, put on repeat, and it's healing the aspect. So he's an amazing dude over there. And yes, we work together, So that, for example, Saturnian, actually Saturn has 147 hertz and the note is G as well. And Moon has 384 hertz and the note is F. And Venus has 444 hertz and the musical note is A. So when I'm giving him the remedy, he knows how to work with it, and we are. But also, you can do rituals. For example, on Moon Day, which is Monday, you can do gardening or painting, Venusian and moon-like activities, So this is very important. But when you have a reading with me and I see a very hard aspect, I'm giving you all the remedies with it. And I can give you also a lifetime remedies. So help you with the relationship, help you with financial blockage, guys, because that is very, very important to be helped with financial blockage. All right. So we can actually right now, if you're giving me permission, Sama, I talked so much, like a lot. And then I'm thirsty. I
Get
have,
some water. Get some water.
Actually, I can share some chart over here.
Yeah, looks good.
So here it is. And that is just a theory because of with Princess Kate Kennedy and Joe Rogan, I don't know them. I didn't talk to them. This is my theory, but I just going to actually make the flow over here. So for example, he has Saturn over here in the seventh house of marriage, legal partnership, and actually legal matters as well, right? In Scorpio, it could be very, very naughty. And look at the conjunction with Mars. So actually, Kennedy, but look, it's also trine with the moon. So actually, he had a very good childhood in previous life as well. But later on, he got into shady business with someone, so he could become a mafia or a drug cartel leader or someone who brought some kind of danger on his family because it squares Pluto, and because of him, his family members got killed. All right, it's a theory, but I'm gonna tell you why I truly believe that's what happened. Because drug dealing, right? Drug dealing is 12th house. He has karma, asteroid karma in the 12th house of addiction. Kennedy was addicted. He's sober for 40 something years, 30 years already. But during his young age, actually, he had heroin addiction. Okay. So actually, he went back because of Saturn and South Node is always giving you in your childhood similar difficulties what you had in your previous life. So that is it. He was addicted and karma is representing over there, and it's opposing Neptune, which is actually like also addiction because it rules the 12th house, anything to do with drug, anything to do with pharmaceutical, or anything to do with alcohol. So it is showing clearly. And what's happened with his father in this lifetime? He had a good life in his early childhood, but his father got killed, who was actually running for presidency. And they had at their home, they had a big event celebrating something, and his father got shot over there. And look at that, Pluto is squaring Mars and Saturn. He brought that from previous life because of him, most likely family members got killed, and that's how actually he paid his karma off. In this lifetime, his father got killed again. So, and then let's see the north node of him. So the south node is in the third house because, you know, he had an amazing family life when he was young in previous life. And also in this lifetime, until he was 8 years old or 10, he got a good life and you know, not a lot of hardship over there. But he has to move away from this family life here, and he has to accomplish something in ninth house matters. Ninth house is ruled by Jupiter, that is law and order. North node is actually conjuncting midheaven and Venus, but it's in Capricorn, which could be a social stand, anything to do with presidency as well, and he's running right now as independent. However, he's also an attorney and he's an environmentalist and environment attorney. Venus rules Taurus, which is environment and agriculture, and he's the one who cleaned up Hudson River. So it shows in his chart, his karmic, the passion what he has to go for. He's very passionate of earth. A Capricorn is an earth sign, anything to do, and Venus is over there, anything to do with agriculture or, you know, mother nature, the land, the wood, and anything to preserve it. So he is very passionate about that. Also, what you have to know about this karmic, that's also because he get actually into either a bad business, so he could become a mafia or drug dealer in his previous life, but because he married actually with someone whose daughter or son was in drug cartel or in mafia, and that shows in the seventh house. And in this lifetime, unfortunately, what's happened with his first wife, again, karma, coming back over here, her first wife actually killed herself, so was suicidal. It shows clearly the family struggle over here and his karma. Okay, let's move forward. I'm gonna bring up Rogan. Rogan is a little bit more fun over here. Okay, so Rogan has, I'm gonna put away the, what is that, the advertisement again? Rogan has actually a beautiful yod. Yod is some kind of sense of purpose over here. And when I check your chart, I check if you have any fixed star over there, if you have any karmic degree. I check really truly throughout everything in your chart. But look at Rogan. So Yod, it is a very, very purposeful life, and creating something in this lifetime. Uh, yes, so creating something, purposeful over here. But look at Logan. Saturn is in the 12th house. So most likely he died in a hospital, but how? He could have been, because of Saturn is actually trining Mercury and Jupiter and Sun over here, and Jupiter Sun conjunction in Leo, which is amazing, right? He is he is he was very respected, and he got some kind of honor and recognition after his death. So he could have been either a police chief, or he could have been a firefighter chief, right? Anything to do with fighting for others. And in this lifetime, Rogan actually was a UFC fighter. So it's showing that, in this lifetime, Saturn, he reincarnated like a UFC fighter. In his previous life, he was fighting for the public, or, serving others with his energy and courage. But he had a death where he got recognized after his death. However, look at this. His death was totally suspicious. And I'm telling you why. Look, so he has actually in the 7th house, he has South Node. Oh, yes, that's why. Because I told you something similar with Joe Rogan, and actually right now I understand what I saw here. South Node actually in 0 degree, karmic degree in Scorpio for him, and North Node in Taurus. So he has to achieve financial luxury and stability by himself with his career. And in previous life, because South Node in Scorpio, most likely he had trust or inheritances, and he lived off from that, right? But look at this over here, the suspicious death. So it is a King Kongs over here, which is involved Saturn. And it is also involving Pluto and Venus, which is the fatal attraction. In the 5th house, intimacy and lover, and 7th house, the lover, husband or wife. So actually, it could be like he was in the hospital because he got injured during like saving people from fire, or as a deputy, he was in hospital, saved others. However, he had some kind of fatal attraction to a nurse. And this is just theory, but brainstorming. So stay with me. And that is over here, the maybe the doctor, the surgeon. Scorpio is surgeon, right? And that is over here, died either because of medical malpractice, but it was hidden. It's never came out after his death. So he was still dying like a hero and in victory. But it could be a betrayer, and he was killed actually because of jealousy. Or it could be, it could be a medical malpractice, but as a hero. So nobody knew about that. All right, let's go and see, for example, Kate. Where is Kate? Here is Kate. And Kate actually had some kind of devastating issue, and I can see that playing out in this lifetime right now, guys. So Kate has Saturn, Pluto, and Mars over here in the 3rd house. Anything to do being muted, right? Not able to talk in public. So I believe she was a writer or a whistleblower, someone who wanted to actually tell the truth to the public, right? And she had a hidden enemy, because Moon over there, who was a female who pretended to be a friend, and actually
Within the family, perhaps?
most like family, you see, because father and mother figure, unfortunately, or
The
sister
sign of
over.
Cancer, too. Yeah.
Yeah, family member, unfortunately, in the previous life, and he was told she was sold out for authority, Capricorn over here, or a father figure who could been actually very strict, or and that's why she been killed. She been killed because of she was fighting for the underprivileged, or wanted to say the truth, or she wanted to have equality, because Libra is equality, or fighting and advocating others, and mediate between people, right? And that's why most likely she have been killed. And you see the North Node is here in the 12th house in Moon. She still can be a public figure and a mother. It's forbidden to hug and kiss her children in front of, because of there is so many restriction in the royal family, and the way they have to hold and carry themselves, and it could be very, very difficult for her, unfortunately. And also it shows the recent cancer for her. She has cancer, and way before, when she disappeared, I told everyone there is something to do with her womb and with her reproductive system, and most likely she got a hysterectomy. And because Saturn and Moon square in natal chart, or opposition or conjunction, actually could really mean cancer, real cancer, health issues. So it's showing in her, and she still cannot be herself, because she still has to serve the public, you see, and she still cannot be herself. So that is a very strong karma for her over here. All right. And then there is actually one of my sons, Zsombor. And I'm just going to tell a nice story over here and show it to you guys. Zsombor has a lot of beautiful qualities, but he didn't talk till he was 3.5 years old. Okay, my son, 4.5 years old, in the bathtub, kept playing with matchboxes. He had like 100 matchboxes in the bathtub, but he kept playing with one, which was a Porsche, and it was a convertible, and it was a really beautiful car, but he never crashed the other cars. He was always putting it in order, nicely. He has a Virgo moon, so he's cared for his belongings, and he's very particular, annoyingly particular. But he kept, crashing that. And once he just told me, I was sitting next to them always reading, and he said, "Oh, I should have not buy that car." I was like, "Which car? This one, but you chose this matchbox?" He said, "No, no, no, mommy. When I was an old man, I bought that beautiful red car, the convertible. And you know what I did? I went so fast and fast and fast, and I died." And look at, and 4.5 years, obviously, he's a funny kiddo. So Saturn in the 5th house, he enjoyed pleasure and joy. And it's opposing Mercury. Mercury is vehicles, it's cars in areas which is actually fast and red. But look at that. Saturn also trine with Karma and Venus conjunction in Gemini, which is also vehicle. He died the way he wanted. He enjoyed what he did, and it was a quick passing, no suffering. So, when I do a lot of cases, and I have right now, because I'm writing my movie script from pretend, I also going to involve astrology, and those are my case studies over here. So if you guys have children and have any kind of remembering, please reach out for me. And if you would like to be in the movie, or like anything in my book, I would really appreciate that. So this is Zsombor, and there is another thing over here, and I have one very heavy case study, but there is, let me see, Martin here. So Martin, it is the 2nd house, actually. Martin kept telling me when he was very small, 2 years old, like, "Mommy, where is my golden spoon? Where is my golden spoon?" Like things like that. I was like, "We don't have golden spoon. What is this child talking about?" I was like, "Come on, boy." So I was a king, whatever. And then he looked at the moon and ascendant. He always feels like he's a king. He's very, oh, yeah. But the golden spoon, not everybody was a king, obviously, because there is a lot of limitation to be king. So I didn't believe that, but he could have been someone who is a count, who had a lot of land, for example, right? And that's what he was, not Count of Monte Cristo, but someone who was actually very well respected because his Saturn is beautifully aspected with the sun. So he was giving, and he really helped his people who worked for him, and he died respected old ages. And yes, indeed, he had a golden spoon. So that's there over here. So that is just like, just short stories over here. Here is my chart, and this is something what, I have beautifully aspected Saturn, but I went for reincarnation hypnosis, and because of between 17 and 18, I always dreamt of one dream for a year. I was laying in a bed, beautiful bed. It was rich. I was very young and I was dying. So when I went to hypnosis, they took me back, and my very previous life was actually, I died in pneumonia. And first, they didn't know what is that. So the doctor was over there, but somehow they didn't know. And it was a bacterial pneumonia. So here it is. 12th house, right? That is something with hospitals. Uranus is bacterial infection. Neptune is virus. Uranus is bacterial. It's training. So I died in my bed. But my lung was full of water from pneumonia. But it also squares Pluto. And squares Pluto is the indication of had been sexually assaulted. And I carried that on in this lifetime as well. Usually you relieve that, unfortunately, in your childhood. And I've been abused sexually in my childhood. So I carried that karma with me. But I'm seeking for justice for every single people who've been sex trafficked or assaulted. I'm working with people, and I'm not a bystander. I always actually, what is that when you, not a bystander, when you tell the authorities, if there is some kind of danger? I am like that. I always report.
Yeah.
So I just reported a massive shooting and actually saved one of my son's school. So that, yeah, it was big. I cannot, but it is. So yes, and here it is Saturn also for me involved in a yod, and that is because I was sexually abused,
And Cancer
assaulted,
is schools too. Interesting. It's children's schools, and in some respect, not schools in the sense. It's more like daycare, really. But that's interesting that you saved school with that, with your setup.
Yes. Oh yes, here. Oh, you're right. You see, I didn't see that because I always need a new eyes. But yes, that's what it means. But it also means, like writing, for example, and my passion, not passion, but my purpose, North Node in here, to teach and write. And I couldn't do it because I was a really strict and helicopter mother until a while. But right now, actually, I wrote my first book, and I want to show that for you guys. That is, let's talk about that, which is actually talking about astrology and abuse, not abuse, but I'm gonna show it later about actually reincarnation, bullying, racism, and how to be compassionate, and also reproduction and other kind of sex. So that is for teenagers over here. So any of you want to purchase, that is my mission over here. Okay, and then I'm going to bring up another chart, and that is a very heavy chart. Let me see if I can find it. Actually, I sent it to myself.
I do have one question for you. And you
Yes.
can talk about this while you're looking this up. Is you have Jupiter approaching your South Node, right? And we're talking about how the South Node relates to karma. Is there anything that you can share about? It's probably not near your South Node now, right? But is there anything about you can share about what you're experiencing currently as it relates to maybe some of your past life experiences, either through hypnosis or just what you're noticing now over the past couple of weeks?
So yes, so that is something about writing because of it's in Gemini, right? And Jupiter over there, it is giving me more clientele at this moment because I paid my karmic debts down already. So I was struggling maybe with clientele or, with writings, but right now Jupiter is giving me a blessing. However, Jupiter over there on Soul Note could bring in karmic ending in our relationship. Hopefully it's not going to be that because we are happily ever after for 25 years, but, it could bring in karmic ending for some people. But it also could seventh house legal. Oh, I know what is that. Legal matters might be. Oh my God. You see, so I tell you what is that. Seventh house is your significant other, right? Jupiter is a blessing on the soul note karmic. That what's happened 2 weeks ago. My husband and my son got actually assaulted by an old man in the community. They wanted to go into the tennis court, and the man started to hit my husband with a tennis racket not to come in. And there was 2 tennis courts. We don't even know what. And I am seeking for justice because George and John Bohr was like, he is an old man. I was like, no, 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 no. I don't care. He hit you, he went, and George had to put his hand up here and he got bruised and we had to go ER. I was like, what is wrong with people? So that is the karmic justice over here, what I'm seeking, because I have enough from people who think they're privileged and they can do anything. So that's what. And this is, do you see the new chart?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So guys, this is a very heavy topic, okay? And this is one of my case studies. So if you have any case study, please, bombard me with it in my email, and then I'm going to get that in. If you allow, I can put that in my new books. So this is a case study, and very close person who actually had some kind of sexual fetish, and she liked to imagine during intimate relationship with her husband to get actually
Is there a way
raped.
to see the full chart?
I don't want to.
Okay, good. Okay, that's fine.
And I covered a lot of things over here.
Okay, sorry. So say
That's okay. That's okay. I just want to show you guys because I told her to go to reincarnation hypnosis just like I did, and it's helped a lot for me. But you have to choose the right people, guys, because they couldn't bring me back and it was very scary. Okay, that's another thing. So she had sexual fetish, right? So she wanted to be without oxygen. Somehow it made her, I don't know.
Asphyxiation.
Yes. Yes, and look at that. Second house is anything to do with your neck. Scorpio, which is sex. Uranus is something very unconventional, very, very weirdo kind of situation, fetish, right? With Sun over here. And it squares Mars in the 11th house. And look at Saturn, her karma, conjunct Moon in the 12th house. All right, hear the story when she went to reincarnation hypnosis. She said, all right, Christy, here it was very disturbing. So I was actually a maiden. I was someone who was a slave and a servant. Look at that, Virgo. Do you see? Servant. Someone who was most likely a virgin still when he started to work to his master, Leo in Mars, who was very, very violent. She said, my master raped me, square with the Uranus energy and Sun in Scorpio in the second house, and he kept choking me, and he made me pregnant. But then, for punishment, he threw me in a dark place. It was like a jail, but it was not because he didn't have jail, but in a dark place, and he killed my baby for punishment, took my baby and killed my baby. And then look at Saturn and Moon over here in 12th house, hidden and everything. And then, yes, so that is the base of her sexual fetish over here. So everything showed in her chart. Then I heard the story and I was like, oh my God, this is insane. Astrology is insane. And that's why when I recommend remedies for you guys and I write down everything, herbs, feng shui, saltwater cure, for example, Saturn in Cancer in my chart, like it could be like I have a lot of remedies over there with saltwater cave and saltwater cures.
Mm.
So I like to be in salt rooms and salt caves, and Saturn is salt,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So that is my cure. I don't know. I am like Greek and Jewish and every kind of nation together. I'm throwing salt all over, and like that's crazy. But yeah. So this is what I wanted to tell you guys. And as I said, I'm going to give you my blog and I'm gonna put my book underneath. You're going to really enjoy that for your children. It is very lovely story and teach them to be compassionate and about abortion and miscarriage and bullying and massive shooting and everything. The very hard topics, but it's lovely. It's compassionate because I wrote for my children.
Beautiful.
Uh, so that's what I wanted to share. But if there is a blockage for you in your purpose, I can help. There is a blockage for you financially, I can help. Remember, these are remedies.
Can you stop sharing the screen if you're done?
Yes, yes, yes. Actually, I'm going to stop share. Okay, I'll be here.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
That way they can see you. I'll edit this part. Go ahead.
Okay. So that's what I wanted to say. Like for example, I am capable to help you with readings and to give you all the remedies, all the tools. As I told you before, there is a lot of knowledge behind. It's not just because I'm a special ed teacher, psychiatric nurse, herbalist, with specialist, whatever, feng shui practitioner, Reiki master. So there is a lot of knowledge behind over here. And that's why my method is to incorporate every single stuff and help you on the most humble way because I try to take out my ego. And it's supposed to be, if you are a spiritual leader, you're not supposed to be right all the time. You have to take your ego. And I'm willing to learn from you guys anytime. If you think I'm not correct over here, if I made errors, mistake, let's have a normal discussion. Not a trolling, I don't like that, but a normal discussion.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for
So,
sharing that. That was very deep, very useful. I think one of the big takeaways for people who might be in a place in their life where this information is right for them to receive from you, whether that's in consultation or just because you made it through the end of this video. Like the last story she just shared, some of these things are genetic memories. Some of these things, if not addressed, will persist indefinitely, whether that's through fetishes or through even the children that she may have. Patterns will continue because that's how energy
mhm,
works. Unless there's something impeding or stopping it, these things will go until they eventually dissipate. So if you are in a place where you realize and you recognize that the path to your goals is being blocked by something and this information can be useful, there are links down below. You can book a session with Christina. She's also open to taking your chart example if you would like to share it to be in the book as well. Of course, you guys can book sessions with me if you're interested in that. All sorts of links down there below. Of course, like she mentioned, there is a free link of information related to her book that it's free. Don't miss it. Take advantage of it. That's there in the description as well. And of course, she'll be in the comment section. So if there's anything you'd like to share, whether it's feedback, thoughts, comments, your own experience with herbs, with karma, with moving through these blockages, please feel free to share. And as always, be well, my love to you, and peace.